in, I'm just examining his gait. His gait was smooth and symmetrical. He didn't have a limp. There was no toe walking or scissoring. His posture is erect and upright. He's not slouching and he's not rigid. His body build is appropriate for his height and weight. His limbs are proportionate to his core, and he is dressed appropriately for the weather, and he appears to be well groomed. So at this point, I would go ahead and introduce myself. So my name is Anita, and I'm going to be your nurse practitioner today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so his effect matches his stated mood, and his speech was clearly audible. It wasn't at a rapid rate, and there were no speech impediments, and his voice was strong. So can you tell me your name?
Andrew.
Okay, and can you tell me where you are?
In Cabot, Arkansas at home.
Okay, and can you tell me what today is?
Wednesday.
Okay, he is oriented to person, place, and time, and his gas flow coma score is 15. So today we're going to be doing a musculoskeletal and neuro exam. So I'm just going to start. We're going to look at your range of motion and your extremities and your spine, and then we're going to check your reflexes and do some special musculoskeletal and neuro exams. So I'm just going to start by assessing and palpating his arms. So I'm going to start with the fingertips and work my way up to the shoulders. So I'm just going to have you pull your sleeves up so we can see. Okay, so looking at his fingers just by touching, they are warm to touch, but his joints are not warm. He has 5 fingers. His hands are equal in size. There is no swelling or tenderness. And then moving up to his wrists are equal in size. They're non-tender and non-edematous. And then looking at his arms, the hair is evenly distributed. The skin is smooth and dry. There's no bruising or masses or any signs of trauma. So then feeling his elbows. His elbows are even in size. The joints are not warm or tender, and there is no edema. So then moving up to the shoulders. So his shoulders are even and they are symmetrical in sign. There is no warmth or edema. And there was no abnormal venous deformities on his arms, and also he did not have a single palmar crease. So now we are going to check the range of motion in your arms, so you can just follow me. We're going to extend to 50 degrees, flex to 180 degrees, and then abduct to 50 degrees, and abduct to 180 degrees, and now slowly drop your arms. Okay, the drop arm test was negative, and then you can internally rotate your shoulders to 90 degrees and externally rotate to 90 degrees. So now I'm just going to have you push up on my hands, and then keep your arms out straight. Yeah, now push up. Okay, and down, and out, and in. Okay. He has full range of motion in his shoulders, and the strength was 5 out of 5 bilaterally. So now moving down to the elbows, you can flex your elbows to 150 degrees, bend them at 90 degrees, and fully extend to 180 degrees. And then you can pronate to 90 degrees and supinate to 90 degrees. And now I'll just have you pull up against my hand, bending at your elbow. Okay, and push. Okay. He has full range of motion of his elbows, and the strength is 5 out of 5 bilaterally. So then moving on to his wrist. Again, flex 90 degrees, extend 70 degrees, and then ulnar deviation to 55 degrees and radial deviation to 20 degrees, and now just push down on my hand with your wrist. And then up. Okay, and to the sides. And okay. He has full range of motion of his wrist, and the strength is 5 out of 5 bilaterally. So now doing your fingers. So you can flex to 90 degrees, extend to 180 degrees, and then hyperextend to 30 degrees. And then you can abduct and adduct your fingers. And can you make a fist? And then I'll have you squeeze my fingers. Okay, the strength is symmetrical bilaterally, 5 out of 5, and he has full range of motion of his fingers. And now I'll have you do this just against resistance. Just pull down on your finger. Okay, and then push. Okay. And now we're gonna do the full can and empty can test. So if you can, just hold your arms out like you're holding 2 Coke cans. Let me know if you feel any pain. Okay, and now act like you're dumping those Coke cans out. I'm gonna push up. Okay. The full can, empty can, and drop test were all negative, so he doesn't have any supraspinatus tears. And now we're gonna move on. I'm just gonna look at his lower extremities. So ideally we would have a patient in a gown so we would be able to see everything. So his legs are symmetrical and even in size. Just feeling his hips. His hips are even, and there is no swelling or tenderness to the hip joints, and there's no warmth. So his muscle tone is even in both legs, and the hair is evenly distributed. There is no bruising or masses, and I'm just going to feel your knees. So the knees are symmetrical in size. There's no tenderness or warmth in the joints. And then now moving down to the ankles. The ankles are symmetrical in size, and there is no tenderness or warmth in the joint. And his calf refill is less than 2 seconds. And his nails are smooth and transparent. There is no discoloration or pigmentation. And I'm not sure if I did the cap refill on his fingers, but the cap refill on his fingers is less than 2 seconds. And his nails are also smooth with no discoloration, peeling, or excessive thickness. And there is no venous malformations on his legs. Now we're going to do the range of motion of your hips. So you can extend to 30 degrees and then flex to 110 degrees and then abduct to 45 degrees and adduct to 30 degrees and internally rotate to 30 degrees and externally rotate to 45 degrees. And then you can flex your knee to 130 degrees. So now I'll have you take a step that way. Push, keep your legs straight, but push against my hand. Like pick your whole leg up. Okay, now back and to the side. And, okay, he has full range of motion of his hips, and the strength is 5 out of 5. Now I'm just going to look at your neck. So your neck is in line with your spinal process and midline on the shoulders. And then examining the spine. Examining the spine from behind, there is no curvature, and then from the side, there is no kyphosis or lordosis. And now I'm going to check for scoliosis. So, and then just bend over at the hips and reach down for your toes. Okay. And there is no curvature of the spine, and the scapulas are even, and the iliac crest is even, so you can stand back up. And now I'm just going to palpate your spinal process. Okay, so his spinal processes, they were symmetrical and in line, midline, and none of them were, they protruded all at the same length and none were recessing. And then his lumbosacral area, there were no dimples, tufts of hair, discolorations, or change in pigmentation, sacs, or sinuses. So now for the range of motion of your spine, I'm just gonna hold your hips so you don't move those. So can you bend over and flex 90 degrees and then extend 30 degrees? And then move left and right 35 degrees and then rotate side to side 30 degrees. Okay, so he has full range of motion of his hip, or of his spine. And now you can put your shirt back on. Let me turn back around and look at me. So now we're going to do range of motion in your neck. So if you can, just move your head back and forth, and then side to side. Okay, and now against my hand. Okay, he has full range of motion in his neck, and the strength is 5 out of 5. Now we're going to do the Romberg test. So you can just stand there and hold your arms out. Okay, and the Romberg test was negative. And now I'm just going to have you heel-toe walk and have a seat there on the edge of the table. Okay, so he can heel-toe walk smoothly and symmetrically, so he does not have any cerebellar dysfunction. So now we're going to continue with the range of motion of your knees. So can you fully extend your knees out straight? Okay, you can extend his knees 180 degrees. And now just push back against my hands and then push. Okay, so he has full range of motion of his knees and the strength is 5 out of 5 bilaterally. So now we're going to do range of motion in your ankles. So we have plantar flexion to 45 degrees, dorsiflexion to 20 degrees, eversion to 20 degrees, inversion to 30 degrees. Wait, I did that backwards. We have eversion to 20 degrees, and then inversion to 30 degrees, and then adduction to 30 degrees and abduction to 10 degrees. And then range of motion in your toes. Can you just spread your toes and bring them back together and curl your toes and stretch them out? Okay. And now I'll have you lift up with your ankles and push down and side to side. Okay. So he had full range of motion in his ankles and toes, and the strength was 5 out of 5 bilaterally. So now we're going to do the rapid movement where you can place your hands flat on your knees and then alternate and put the backs of your hands on your knees and just go back and forth. Okay. Stop. So he is able to rapidly alternate his hands and it's smooth and symmetrical. And now I'm going to place an object in your hand. If you can, just close your eyes. Okay, and feel that object and tell me what it is.
A key.
now I'm going to draw a number in your hand. If you could just tell me what the number is.
A 3.
Yes, I drew a 3 in your hand, so your graphesthesia is intact. Now I'm going to touch your hand with this point and let me know when you can feel 2 separate spots on your hand.
There.
Okay, so now I'm just going to measure this, and it is 10 millimeters, which is normal for 2-point discrimination of the hands. Now we're going to do dull and sharp, so just let me know when you feel, if you feel a dull or sharp sensation. And I'm going to do this on your face, your arms, and your legs.
Dull. Sharp. Dull. Sharp. Dull. Sharp. Sharp. Dull. Sharp. Dull. 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 Sharp. Dull. Sharp.
Okay, he was able to discriminate between dull and sharp on his face, upper and lower extremities. So now I'm going to check your reflexes. So we're going to do your tricep reflex. I'm going to get where you can see me. Okay. And your brachial. Okay. And your brachioradialis. Okay. And now your patellar. Okay. And your Achilles. Okay. And then a Babinski or plantar reflex. Okay, and that is negative because he curled his toes in. Okay, and now I'm going to have you remember 3 words. It is cat, clock, and apple. Now I'm just going to have you lay down on the table. Okay, so now that he is laying down, I'm going to assess his leg length is symmetrical, and now if you could just bend at your knees. His knee height is symmetrical. Now you can lower your leg down. Now I'm just going to palpate his inguinal nodes. Okay, and no lymph nodes were palpable. And now we're going to do the Brzezinski's sign. So I'm going to pick up on the back of his neck and put my hand here on his chest and see if he flexes his knees. Okay, so that is negative because his knees did not flex. Now we're going to do the anterior and posterior jaw test. I'm going to have you bend your knee, and I'm just going to... Okay, so so the anterior and posterior jaw tests were negative. Now the Lachman sign, I'm just gonna hold, it's kind of hard to see, hold here on his femur and put my hand on his tibia and move his leg. Okay, so the Lachman sign is negative, and now the McMurray's. And that is also negative. Now we're going to do the bulge test on his knee. Okay, and there is no bulge, so that is negative. And now the ballottement, that is negative, so there is no fluid in his knee. Now I'm going to test for clonus. And there was no clonus. Now I'm going to have you sit back up. And I'm going to palpate your axillary and epitrochlear lymph nodes. You can bend your elbow. Okay. And there were no lymph nodes palpable. Now, can you tell me who the previous president was?
Barack Obama.
Okay. And what were those 3 words?
Clock, cat, and apple.
Okay. So his remote and recent memory is intact. So that concludes our musculoskeletal and neuro